You're listening to The Vault. I'm Trisha Taurinskas. For most of Loyal Lundstrom's 20-year marriage to Helen Lundstrom, the couple lived just outside of the quiet southwestern farming city of Montevideo. Together, they had 5 children. They immersed themselves in the community, which, at the time, had a population of around 6,000. Loyal worked at the same company for 15 years. He served as a member of the school board. He was president of the Montevideo Interdenominational Holiness Camp and a member of the volunteer fire department. But in 1965, when their eldest son joined the Navy, the Lundstrom family picked up their well-manicured life and moved north to Merrifield, Minnesota, where they purchased the then Rainbow Acres Lake Resort on North Long Lake. Merrifield is located near Brainerd, Minnesota, a lake town that hosts cabins and resorts for families throughout the state. It was a summer hotspot, and still is. Once again, in Merrifield, the family became active in the community, with Loyal serving as superintendent of the local church's Sunday school program. Helen taught classes alongside him. And then something tragic happened to the seemingly perfect family. Loyal's wife, Helen, the mother of his 5 children, was found dead on the resort property. Hours before Helen's death, she and her husband sat at the dining room table, preparing Sunday school lessons for the weekend. It was a normal Saturday night, a weekend ritual for the church leaders. Yet what came next was anything but routine. According to court documents we obtained, the argument between the couple began in the bedroom, where Helen allegedly bit Loyal on the hand during a near sexual encounter. Their daughter testified in court that she heard slapping noises coming from the bedroom. She said they were familiar sounds. She'd heard it all before. This was a pattern of behavior for Loyal. Obviously angry with the situation, on that Saturday night, Helen made her way downstairs to the kitchen to get some air and to get away from her husband. Loyal followed Helen downstairs, and he kept following her. Helen left the house through the kitchen door and made her way to the lake resort's shower and washroom building. She was just trying to get away from him. Still, he followed her. Loyal testified in court that when he got to his wife, she became hysterical and started hitting him. He said he attempted to restrain her and pushed her against the wall with one hand on her neck and one hand on her waist. She jerked back and fell to the floor. Loyal said he thought she had fainted. He said he slapped his wife to revive her, but she didn't wake up. Helen was dead. After failing to find a pulse, Loyal did not call for help. Instead, he testified that he went inside to get dressed and then drove to the Brainerd police station. Once he got there, he told Officer Harold Knutson that he and his wife had a friendly argument, resulting in his wife's death. He told Knutson that he loved his wife and he would never hurt her. Despite this, Loyal was eventually arrested and charged with manslaughter for the death of Helen. During the trial, Dr. William Knoll, who conducted the full autopsy on Helen, testified that, according to his medical opinion, Helen died from asphyxiation. Basically, she was strangled. Dr. Knoll painted a picture of Helen's injuries that included bruises on the neck and thighs, as well as congested blood vessels in the brain and diaphragm. No fractures were detected, but Dr. Knoll did indicate there was evidence of hemorrhage in the area around her larynx. In court, Loyal's defense team relied heavily on his perceived character, highlighting his civic accomplishments, church involvement and testimony from those who had grown close to him, including his pastor. After more than 10 hours of deliberation, the jury found Loyal Lundstrom guilty of first-degree manslaughter. He was given a sentence of up to 15 years in prison and began serving his time at what is now known as Minnesota's Stillwater Correctional Facility. According to Minnesota law, first-degree manslaughter is defined as an act that intentionally causes the harm of another person in the heat of passion, provoked by such words or acts of another as would provoke a person of ordinary self-control under like circumstances. After his sentencing, Loyal began the appeal process. After more than a year, his case made its way to the Minnesota Supreme Court, and in 1969, the court overturned the first-degree manslaughter conviction. In the majority decision, Justice Frank T. Gallagher cited a lack of evidence to establish the intentionality of the incident. Gallagher also stated the indictment presented to the jury was confusing in nature. Essentially, he thought they must have been confused. The Minnesota Supreme Court called for a new trial, but the Crow Wing County Attorney's Office dropped the charges. They cited a lack of new evidence. So, just 2 years after the death of his wife, Loyal Lundstrom was a free man. He moved to the Minneapolis area with his children, where he worked as a machinist. With his wife dead, he needed help with the children while he worked, so he hired an in-home nanny and eventually married the nanny's daughter, Doris. The couple moved to Texas, where they were married. Loyal and Doris were married in Brown, Texas on April 4th, 1974. Doris was 18 years old at the time. Loyal was 50. The two had 5 children together. And at the time Doris was murdered, they ranged in ages from 3 to 10. In part 2, what the hell happened in Texas? And who killed Doris? You've been listening to The Vault, a Forum Communications podcast covering true crime and general intrigue in the Upper Midwest. I'm Trisha Taurinskas. To view this story and others, visit inforum.com/thevault.